you tell me about when the communists came?
Well, when they came in, was a big change. Yes, it was a big change, and we had to work for the government slowly. That was not. I mean, I was about 12 years, or maybe more, about 15 years old, and worked for the government and do this. They were not too bad, especially for us, I would say, because the neighbors around, they knew our faith. They knew that we did not been heavy involved in the Nazis, and they helped us. They protected us. They went to high authorities and said, "Look, these people never did this, and they've done." But we had to work for the government. My dad used to feed pigs, and been alone on the farm, and it was not easy, And then I remember these people who knew us, who came and let us know that they can't protect us anymore. We have to leave. And I remember that. I remember that very well, where they came, and I believe it was at Christmas time. And they came. They came, and we used to get some little bit, but not much, a little bit of stuff in a bag, and they chased us out on a big lawn, and they even took a shirt off my back. I had so big lumberjack shirt, and they took my shirt and took some of my pants away, and I remember one young lady, she's now a sister in church, she saw my pants on the pile. There was a big pile where they took the clothes, and she saw my pants, and she said to me, "Kuni, is not that your pants?" I said, "Yes." And so I got my pants back, but then we had to walk. We had to walk, And I'm just thinking now, I'm 89 years old, I couldn't walk. And there was some people who just about could not walk. And we passed by a little village, They were all Romanians, only one German was there. And these Romanians knew that we are coming, and the guards were riding on horses. And they were not too bad, not that I recall they were. These Romanians went to these guards and said, "Look, allow us that we get a horse and wagon, these old people on." And they did. They did allow, and there was some I believe, I knew them a little bit, they were in the 70s and in the 80s years old. But that was very bad. I just recall a very bad situation walking then in town on a railroad track. A railroad was leading us to another big town, and there was one mother, and she had, I think, two kids in a buggy, and tried to push a buggy on a railroad track with all the railroad ties, and they shot the mother and the kids. And when you see stuff like that, you walk, you go. But then they took us into a town and drained, and they got us into a church. All the churches there, doesn't matter what it was, a Catholic church or Lutheran church, they had been fenced in. And they put us in there overnight and drained, And the next day they put us in houses. But then, it went on, and there was a lot of things. I remember we used to go and get straw from the next town. I wish I should have went there. I could have maybe found the house. And as the road went, it bent. And when we used to go with the wagons, there used to be a guard on the first wagon and a guard on the back wagon to watch us. But we never did we escape. But when that road bended, I noticed that the front guard could not see me and the back guard could not see me. I jumped off from the wagon and I went into a house. And I remember it as clear as we sat here and talk. As soon as I got into the kitchen, I see Tito's picture. But there was no way anymore to back up or anything. I was at the door, and the family was sitting on the table, and the father was sitting on the end of the table, and all I said, a piece of bread. And some young guys got up and yelled at me, and the father got up very angry and said, "Did you hear the boy asking a piece of bread?" And they quieted down. They quieted down, and the mother, I remember the mother had a big loaf of bread. She cut a piece of bread off and gave it to me. I took off like a jackrabbit. Out, ran to my wagon, and I remember I brought the bread to my dad. He used to cut it up and put it out on the sun to dry. Because if you leave bread undried, it will get moldy. And my dad used to dry that, and then he hide it underneath his pillow. My dad and another ministering brother, they took him out there and to level the road, because the road was all muddy road. And when was mud, they left some rods there, from the wagon. And when it dried, you could go and with a shovel and level it off. So my dad and this other brother, was leveling the road, and there was front of the office where the concentration commandant was, and some helper of his, and he was very mean. He got my father and his brother, this ministering brother, into the backyard of the commandant's yard there, and said, "Take your clothes off. I am your God." Where is your God? He knew our faith very well. He knew our faith very well. Where is your God to save you? And dig your hole. And my dad and his brother tried to dig the hole. A girl came out from the office and called this man on the telephone. And my father and the brother were digging there, and this guy went away. And my dad said, "Let's put our clothes on." Oh, the brother says, "No, this guy coming, he'll beat us, Says, "Nah, my dad, my dad, as I told you before, he was very calm. He did not." So finally they realized this guy is not coming back. They put their clothes on and went back there, I think, to work and somehow but the story on that is, and this is very true, that my sister met this man, and she knew him, because like I said, he knew our church. And he then said to my sister, "Did your father told them how I got them this?" But then my sister said, "Did you realize that they've been saved?" And he thought that to my sister, Hitler. He says, No. We don't believe Hitler saving. We believe in God saving. and he went away. This man, just to talk about this man, I know the three. His own people, not put concentration, his own people caught him, hanged him on a tree. I know the tree maybe is still there, or maybe it's fall apart already, old. They hanged him upside down and started to skin him. And when they started to cut him, he started to bleed. When they realized he died, they left him died. That's what kind of man he was. But that is over, That there, there would be a lot to say about from a concentration camp. And God was always there, we worked, and I used to be like a taxi driver, taking people away, and where they want to go, they bring a note and you take them, but things went on, and then I escaped even from there, and went to my brother there. I think I have talked with that before, and then it came a time that they freed us, but not home, no home. And then I had to join the army, the communist army, and thank God, again, people have to realize how God put everything without asking or without even thinking. I came to be a first aid man, like a paramedic, and we went to school. I liked that. I liked the schooling. Let's just talk a little bit of the Army Common, when we came in there, and all being civil yet, and they wanted to know how many nationalities we have, and there was some Muslims and some Bosnian people and so forth, and I stood all alone. And I never forget my captain walked up to me. He was a very serious man and said, "And what are you?" I said to him, I'm a German, actually, I should call it German, and he paused a little bit, looked at me, and he said, "Your father a German?" I says, "Yes." "Your mother a German?" "Yes." And he said, "Good, I never had one." In the army, let's take there, just don't want to make it too long, It was easy to be smart among those, how should I call them hillbillies, But they used to have a teaching of politics, how communism is good. Every evening we used to sit there on this guy giving us lectures and talking how good it is. And I remember a guy came home, and I think his child died or something, and it was pretty bad, and he complained. And they said, "You sit down and be quiet," But anyway, there was a room when you put the switch on, and shortened the whole barrack, all the hydro went off. And to make a long story on that short, when I got tired of this teaching this communism, I went there and I put that switch on, and when it got dark, we all went to bed, But then I realized that every time I went out to the washroom, the hydro went off, that they don't catch me. But I had a good friend of mine, a Hungarian guy, and I told him about it. But to get to that story there, sometimes people daytime try to get in that room and put the switch on, and hydro went off. And I was away, and the hydro was in the office, and the fuse was different than today, and there was a gypsy. And he said, "Oh, I can fix it." but the short was on. Hey? And when you go there and try to put the fuse in it and the short is on, that is 220. That's not 110 like we have. And make a big spark. There is a piece of wire there, and that wire will burn. And that sparked and just about knocked that gypsy right off the table. And I came up, and they all, and this Hungarian guy, I saw him, and I looked at him, and the Hungarian guy went to put the switch up, took the short off, and then I give him a speech, that you got to be careful, you got to do this and you got to do that. And I took that fuse and I just put it on and whoop, all the lights come on. They all thought I was a magic man, but there was a something, I can't find the right name for it. And there was many things. There was all kinds of things there. Then I go to be a first aid man in a outfit where they were all guerrilla fighters, all high ranked men and high people. You had to be very, very careful what you say and how you are minded. There was a guy, I remember, a tailor, a good friend of mine, and he disappeared. I didn't find him anymore. I didn't see him anymore. I asked, "Are you a friend of his?" "Oh, no. He's talked too much." See, by communism, you have to be very careful what you say. You say the wrong thing, you disappear. And there is no lawyer. There is no anything to complain or anything. And there was some, let's call them communist FBI, secret man, who come and ask you, how do you mind and all that. All I said to him, says, my brother been shot, my father died for hunger, I was 5 years in concentration camp, how would you feel? And he says to me in a very strong word, "Don't ask me something like that." And I said to him, "Officer, don't ask me something like that. I'm a soldier, I do what you say, I obey the orders, and that's it." He says, "Good." You have to be especially careful. But even there, thank God, God was all. If I recall, and I want to be very careful, God knows it, all I knew that time that when I went to bed, in bed, lying and have a prayer. And I remember a little bit, that something is missing. And I knew I did not pray. In bed lying and praying. And I believe, as the Bible says, God sees into the secret place. God knows our thoughts. We have to realize